so I got two bits of news. Two bits of news. Judith has had a wildfire up in Yorkshire, which ain't going to change much, to be honest with you. There's nothing up there. So when Judith wasn't here last week, because I can't make this up, she was in a poo museum on the Isle of Wight.
Oh,
It's true, honestly.
no.
There's a poo museum in the Isle of Wight, and I just can't make it up, can you? But there was, and that's what
I
we did
don't
last
want
week.
to burst your bubble, but it is a tiny little room. That's that. It looks like it's in a huge building, and you walk in, and it's just one little room.
Oh,
What's the TARDIS? Is it on reverse?
Yeah.
I tell you what, anyone could do that. Then what I'll do a Karl-James Langford museum. I'll have all my press cuttings around the room, all sort of quotes from me, and that'll be it. Love
Cost
it.
people £4 to get in.
Did it? Oh, Roger, me and you are missing out on something here. Christ, we can make a fuss.
when was
And it
this?
was packed. Apparently, this was packed. The museum was packed.
There were
Which
loads of
museum is
kids.
it?
I don't
Do you
think we
live?
had to pay for kids. Yeah, it was in. Oh God, sorry, it's been a mad couple of weeks. Was
And
it
on the Isle of Wight.
Ride? I think.
Right.
Oh, right.
Ride.
Good,
Yeah,
good.
right, right.
Mm, right.
It was on Ride the Isle of Wight.
It took
Right.
about 10 minutes to look at everything.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you a strange question, right? Can I just ask you a really strange question? I was on a train journey once coming back from London, and I didn't have a train ticket, right? So I went in the bogs, right? I had no money, and I looked down in the toilets, and there was a train ticket to Ride, right? Now, how'd you get a train to Ride on the Isle of Wight?
Because you can get on the train as a on the ferry as a foot passenger, and then there's a train from. I only know this because our youngest son and his girlfriend popped over to see us while we were there, and they came down on the train from Portsmouth to. Um, they go to Cows. I don't know. There's two train
Yeah.
stations at the top. One's Ryde, one's Cows, and then you can travel down the coast to Sandown and Shanklin.
Oh, nice. I had no, I didn't even know there
Yeah,
were trains on the Isle of Wight.
yeah, snap. And the things you find out.
The Isle of Wight train line must be so efficient. It must be on time all the time.
I bet it
Because they,
is. I bet it is. Because even
Yeah.
though it looks like there's hardly any traffic, but because the roads, I'm not convinced the Romans were on the Isle of Wight because they did
Mm.
nice straight roads, didn't they? Every time the sat nav said, right, you turn right here, every time you had to do a right turn, it was on a blind bend. So it took you 5 minutes of, oh, I don't know, before you could even think about turning. So everywhere was really slow to get to. It was nice. Everybody was very, like gentlemen of the road. It was nice driving, but it was every time was on a blind. Well, the Romans wouldn't do that, would they?
Oh,
yeah,
Because they.
well. Hang on a minute, right? That's for me to tell you about, and
All
that's
right.
for us to
Okay.
decide. So
All
don't
right.
don't have any preconditions, right, on that. So I got three images of you on. I've got 1 year. Oh God, it's terrible. Right, Drina.
no, no news. Sorry.
All right, Dana. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
It's perfectly fine. Roger, anything you want to tell us, Roger, other than the fact
No,
that we
no,
all
yeah,
love you?
no.
David,
No.
it's going quite well tonight. Got right, Anne. You can't not say anything. That's the rule.
Right, well, I went to see the library and met um, Emma and David, and I really had a really nice afternoon at Margaret's and meeting them. I hope you got
Oh,
your
hang
books
on.
all,
Explain
I
the
hope you got your
context.
books all right.
Hang on. You've got to explain the context of why you were there. Yeah, go through all that.
Well, Margaret had said call in. In fact, I thought a lot more people would be there because she said call in because Emma and David are coming up to get the books. So I popped round and I seemed to stay ages and sort of helped to put the books in the car, which seemed overloaded. I just hope they got home all right. I was a bit concerned, but it was
Yeah.
really nice meeting them, and I really enjoyed it, Margaret. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
Uh,
for your card.
and I gotta say, some stuff about the library, right? There's some books in that library that that shouldn't have even been in Cumbria, right? And there was one book there that, as soon as I looked at it, I thought one of the books was worth 200 quid before I even started looking at it. I thought this is a very valuable collection. So,
Darn it. Darn it.
yeah, no, it's the first book I picked out. I thought this is so rare. I looked it up and I realized, yeah. So, but the stuff in the library is massively important because here we go. I've got one of the books here, which you will be. Look at this one, the Roman inscriptions of Britain, right? This type of book itself is exceedingly rare, and for me, that is a gem. I want to say something about libraries and archives in a minute, which is really, really important, which I'm going to do in a moment. But I will say that we are gonna get all the books. We have worked out that we've got about 10,000 books in our library in Barry, and that's no joke. There's about 10,000 books, and the Roman collection of books alone is probably extended to about 400 now. So,
Yeah.
most of what we're doing today is actually taken from a book. It's not off the internet or anything. The images, that's great. So it's not one of those books. It's one of my books. So it was great that it was brilliant that the likes of Anne and Margaret made the effort to meet Emma and David from Chepstow. And it's great that Margaret kept hold of the books. Now I can work out what books we've got and what books we can use, which is basically everything. And yeah, it was brilliant. So thank you for that, Anne. And anything from you, Margaret?
No, no, no. We had it was nice to meet them. We had a nice afternoon.
Good.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. Andy can't make it tonight. Has he phoned you up?
I know about Andy.
Okay.
There's some other stuff going on as well. He's got a lot to sort out this minute, so we'll leave him be. I don't know where he told you, Margaret, but he has got a lot on his
He's
plate.
going to be using my garage.
Why have you given away the what's? You basically told us what's happening. Don't say any more.
A few things to store, so I said,
Only a few.
I've got room in my garage now.
You'll all start feeling sorry for Andy at this rate. Right. Okay. So right. Yeah. One. Now, do you know when things come together and there's a lot happening and you're just wandering along and you're thinking, right, I want to talk about this. I was. It came about. It came about. Yes, it came about this morning actually. Right. And I had a tape, which is this tape, right? And this is from 1992, and I've not listened to this from 1992. And for the first time, basically in many years, I had something sent to me in the post, and instead of leaving it in the package under the bed for like 5 years, I got it out and I played this tape. And this tape was somebody talking about a lost history of my hometown, Barry, right? And there's enough on there to write a whole book. And it got me thinking. It got me really, really thinking. And why it got me thinking was I've got to go and get the material to add a bit of context, right? The way it got me thinking, right, was I started the other book one of the books I'm writing is again another history of Barry, right? And I was going through a load of things, and I thought, hang on a minute, I've got these images, which are these here, right? Which is of a monument in Barry that very, very few people know about, right? I'm not going to give anything away. And I thought, right, these are photographs, and these actually date from 2008. I've got earlier photographs from 1998, I do believe as well. And I thought, if these photographs were on a disc, and if these photographs were on a computer hard drive, right, that would be it. They would be no longer accessible, right? Simply because, we don't really, we don't really back our stuff up on computers and discs and all the rest of it. So the one thing about this is that, it's very important that we keep hold of our documents and photographs, because in a few years, all the stuff on your mobile phones will be corrupted, will be deleted, and it won't be of any value anymore, because you won't be able to get access to it. Also, I went down to the local printer today and the local photograph shop, right? And there's a plan here, right? That I made in 1989 of an archaeological site in Barry. And there's stuff on here which no longer exists at our archaeological site. So I thought, right, that can go in a book. So I scanned it. Now, if that was on a computer, that wouldn't exist either. Now, where am I going with this? I'm going with something quite simple, right? Where I'm going is that I contacted the National Library of Wales, right, about a newspaper that used to be issued by something called by a Penarth local newspaper. There's Cardiff, Barry, and Penarth in South Wales. I'll go with the gist, right? They started issuing newspapers at the beginning of the 1870s, right? I contacted the National Library and they said these newspapers don't exist anymore. All the newspapers do not exist anymore because somebody's gone and chucked them in a skip and they've not been recorded. So that information in the newspapers is gone. Apparently, there's no record of those newspapers in the British Library. They don't exist, right? And then that leads me on to something else. This is why doing these evenings, these classes are very important. Michelle, I did a video today basically talking about what I'm talking about, and I put it online. And then Michelle turned around and she said, Neil Oliver's talking about exactly the same thing. And what Neil Oliver is talking about is the fact that what libraries are doing now to save space, right? They're scanning books like this into the computer, right? And then they're chucking these things in a skip. And what does it take? Just one finger on a button and that book is gone forever, right? And what Neil Oliver's saying is going to be so easy for people to invent history in the future because all that information will be gone. And we're talking about the period in history where in the past 2 years, more information has been put on the internet than in the entire course of human history. But it takes one single person to switch, to press a button, and all that's gone. Do you know, in the battle near the old battlefield site at Bull Run in the United States, they've got, I think, 20 mega computers, right? So if somebody dropped a bomb on those mega computers, all the world's information on the World Wide Web will be gone. Your uploaded photographs, everything will be gone, right? So what I'm trying to say is that we've got to be very, very careful on the documents that we have. And Neil Oliver is saying exactly the same thing as me, that if we're not careful, we're going to be so reliant upon going into libraries and everything being on a computer that we're gonna basically there's going to be a point that we're going to lose it all. And basically this book that me and Richard have been writing about Barry, right? 50% of the information in that book has come off the internet, and 50% of that information has come out of books and research and material that we've put together. So the point is, if you relied upon the 50% of the information that we're getting off the internet, right, the other 50% won't be published because it won't be available. Because it's on hard copies. So we cannot be reliant upon the stuff on the internet. And people going out researching their family history, right? You think everything's online, but it's not. It's not online by a long chalk. So we've got to be very, very careful. And I just wanted to put that out there. I wanted to put that across. Right. So what I want to do now is I've got a lot I want to do tonight, and I'm also painfully aware that I've got to I've got to be on set in tomorrow. So I might actually 1 second. Yes, I got to be on set tomorrow. So I've got to be. Say that again, Rog.
Traveling far away, or is it more local?
No, it's not. I'm not actually traveling far away at all. I'm
Oh,
actually
that's not bad.
traveling.
Good.
Basically,
Yeah.
I've still got to get there. So, but
Oh,
I'm doing a big film production in Gloucester. But
okay. Oh, yeah.
that's for the end of the week. But I've got
Mm.
to get to a costume fitting. So I don't want to be too long tonight anyway. So let's just crack on. So let's get on to the images. And again, it's good to talk about things which are very controversial. So
Mm.
there we go. Um, and
But,
Michelle's telling me that I'm not giving Baldrick our turkey enough hugs.
well,
So so I'm going to invite David down from our side and he can hug him for me. Right. So where we're at tonight, we're going to be looking at a little bit in regards to how Rome is put together, a law and order structure. And this was based on what one of you guys said. You said, how did Rome work? How did it come together? How did this whole thing operate? And I just thought, right, what I don't want to do tonight is I don't want to do 2 hours of talking about you know um the law and order, policing, taxation, blah blah blah. So what I've done, we're going to be looking a little bit of the Etruscans tonight. We'll be also looking at Pliny as well. So so as as with every society, as with every society out there, um, taxation taxation keeps the throes of commerce going. Taxation is really, really important, and no such exception in regards to Rome. This image, really interesting enough, is a beautifully carved, in-depth image, right? Yeah, it's carved into stone. You can see the folds there. You can see this coming alive. Can you imagine this being painted? It'd be so good. This is an image of taxation, right? That a cloth merchant displays a piece of fabric seen on a sarcophagus from Trier from the 300s, right? Now, Trier again in Germany. There you go. Roman remains in Germany. Yes, there are loads of them. Some of the best Roman remains in the northwestern hemisphere are actually in Germany. Interesting enough. Um, and the steady growth of textile industries in Gaul, France, and other provinces shows that economic activity was not yet crippled by taxes. So, in other words, what does that mean? So Rome was really good at taxes. Then eventually, everything was taxed, bit like Britain, really. But anyway, one of those great heroes that Drina loves is Cicero, and Cicero would state it is a statesman duty not to impose the tributum soli on the people. So, in other words, the tributum soli property tax. They were talking about property tax. Property tax. Cicero was saying, don't have a property tax imposed on the people. Poll tax, Margaret Thatcher. Do you know what? We can learn a lot from the past by looking at the annals of how other people governed their states and how this bore out in the archaeology. And talking about the archaeology, it's very interesting that lots of those great majestic buildings out there. For example, the Pont de Gard, this wonderful aqueduct. You could talk about the Pantheon in Rome. You could talk about the great structures of Emperor Hadrian, and Caligula, and so on and so on. The list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. But that's all to do with taxes. You can only build those things through taxes. When you think about Britain, Britain has got a paucity of great Roman structures. You don't have the arches like Trajan's column in Rome. You don't have these great monuments that you see in Africa to do with Rome, because the taxes in Britain raised were not simply enough to pay for the great buildings that Rome needed to build in Britain, but they were elsewhere. Cicero declared, voicing the sentiments of the Roman people. Cicero was that great statesman. You should be very careful when you're imposing property tax. You can have taxes on lots of other things, right? But be very careful about some of the taxes. Um, so so when Cicero was writing, there was, in fact, a property tax on Roman citizens levied only in emergencies, right? So what we'll do, we won't have a property tax all the time. We'll have a property tax when we need to raise money for wars, right? But you know what, right? We did that. I know we're doing a lot more history tonight. We did that. You know the reason why we've got inland revenue, because all that was put together to as a temporary tax, right? The inland revenue is being collected as a temporary tax to pay for the war against Napoleon. And guess what? We're still paying it. Um, so this was in regards to the 200s had seen one emergency after another. So in other words, if you've got an emergency after another, you can keep on having property tax. You can keep on taking money off people. Let's take money off people over and over again. Rome was accordingly at war many, many times, right? But there are gaps in the Roman world that Rome is not at war. But by the time generals were returning with their booty from ransacking Greece after the Battle of Pindar in 167, it said that we could abolish some of the taxes. So this is the thing. So in the Roman world, initially, well before the birth of Jesus Christ, there was a property tax, and you'd keep the property tax going. He says, Gina, there's a war going on. We got to keep taxing you. And there's a war going on. We're going to keep taxing you. But when they're coming back with all these wonderful goodies from war against Greece in 167, people were saying, hang on a minute, look at the goodies, look at the goodies. Why are you taxing us? And the government relented to have that tax continuing. Taxes are always controversial when you're trying to organize a state, right? This is one of the things, but this is something that we don't talk about with the Roman world. Taxes are very important when we're looking at the Roman world. You couldn't keep an army going without taxes. You couldn't build the Colosseum without taxes, right? You couldn't build the Appian Way without taxes. You can do any of these things. And that's one thing that sort of draws me in to sort of make this really relevant. Because when in Britain, we had a weird sort of tax structure in Roman era Britain, really queer, right? So what the Romans said, they said at Carlisle, for example, they said, what we're going to do, right? You raise all the taxes and you've got to sort of build roads with it, and you've got to maintain the roads, and you've got to do this and that. The local magistrate to keep in charge, instead of raising taxes, they didn't. So therefore, they didn't need to repair the roads. Roads, there you go, Judith. Roman roads are not what they're meant to be in Britain. They're very, very different. So basically, if you can avoid collecting taxes, so that you can remain in control of the magistrature in Britain, right? You didn't collect those taxes, so therefore the roads weren't maintained. Job done, Bob's your uncle, things fall apart, but that's something else. So taxes remaining controversial throughout the Roman Republic, obviously before the days of the Roman Empire, before the days of Julius Caesar. So it became less so. And so what's happening is that when we see the emperors would keep raising taxes, right, over and over again. They just after the birth of Christ and good old Tiberius, you're talking, and then you go into Claudius and Nero and so on. So basically, you keep taxing it. There's more and more taxes to pay for everything. Wars that we don't need to fight. Do you know what? Right? Isn't there a parallel with today's modern day and age? Without getting political, there you go. So again, we're loving this one. Look at this beautiful illustration. This is from the AD 500s, and this is a mosaic from Ravenna. And the thing is, Ravenna, that was sort of northeastern Italy, right? And Ravenna at this stage was slightly out of the Roman world. It was under Gothic rule. By then, maritime trade had shrunk dramatically, although for centuries maritime taxes had been a major source of revenue for Rome. So take that back from Ravenna and the Goths and all the rest of it, take it back to the birth of Christ. Taxes, anything coming into your harbour, you tax, right? Tax everything, And so this is one of the things that you constantly taxes over and over again. So originally, both Romans and their Latin associates contributed to the Roman state through fighting for it, providing their own arms and armor. That's really interesting that because indirectly we can see that if you've got armies and you're providing your own arms and armor, you don't really need to have many taxes to get the taxes in to pay the army, right? But things changed. If you're going to have a professional army, right? If you're going to have a professional army, you need to have taxes with a professional army after the birth of Christ, for example. Indirect taxes such as customs duty paid for minimal peacetime government. When the acquisition of Sicily in 241 BC at the expense of the Carthaginians, damn the Carthaginians, allowed the Romans the luxury of taxing subject foreigners. So basically, there's something important here, right? There's something important. The Romans introduced the 10% tithe on farm produce. And why is that important? That 10% tithe on farm produce was still in existence in medieval Britain. Yeah. So again, all of these things are so relevant when we're looking at the texture of the Roman world on what they're giving us. So basically, in the wealthier provinces, the East Mediterranean, major problems arose. Tax them, keep taxing them over and over again. Let's keep taxing them. So this is one of the things, and so what Rome would do, try and tax everybody, get as many taxes as you possibly can. So one of the things that we're talking about is that how Rome administered with the navy and all the rest around the Mediterranean. When they were administering Greece, for example, Macedonia, right? You know, after the last king of Pergamum, in 146, the Romans started realizing to administer an empire, you need money. So when you've called the Germans came a cropper with this in the Second World War, again, not learning from history, right? So one of the things that's said, right, and you can argue with me on this one, but I'm just going to make a statement. Germany needed to start the Second World War because it had run out of money, right? So you would invade another country, right, and then you would loot and pillage everything in that country, and then you would need to raid another country to pay for everything that's going on. So this is a cause and effect thing that happened in the Second World War. Adolf Hitler was not just invading these countries for the sake of it. He needed to invade these countries for resources, right? It's one thing that lots of people forget. So this is something that was happening in the Roman world. The Republic itself, in places like Greece, were incapable of administering, especially of taxes. So they needed to be ruthless in collecting taxes, right? And then basically so they're taxing farmers. You know, there's a tax on farmers. You know, in Greece, what is there in Macedonia other than farming, right? So you just really tax the farmers, right? So I'm sorry to say that if you're going to get money to sort of control an area, to have an army, you've got to tax the people who are actually doing the work, like the farmers. And again, I don't need to say anything about the modern day and age, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. So the way the Romans are conducting themselves, right, is by trying to tax as many people as you can to keep the luxurious world going, right? And this is another thing Cicero admitted. However sympathetic and conscientious you may be in everything, there is one immense obstacle, right? And that obstacle is tax. You've got to tax, right? Taxation is the bread and butter of the Roman world. And this is really important. The Greeks were really taxed heavily, right? Massive taxes, right? and when there was a dictator called Sulla just before the Spartacus rebellion in 85 BC, right? So Sulla, this great, actually, when you talk about Julius Caesar wasn't the first dictator of Rome. There were a number of dictators of Rome, and one of them was Sulla. So Sulla about 85 BC, a little bit before Spartacus, 74 BC Spartacus, a little bit before Julius Caesar. So we're talking about the 50s BC, so 85 BC. Sulla's basically seeing that Rome was in charge of a big chunk of Greece, right? And Sulla thought, right, we haven't really charged enough. We haven't really charged these sort of cities in Greece enough. So what we're going to do, we're going to tax them, and we're going to also charge the people in these cities 5 years back taxes. So if it's a 10% tax, it's then going to be a 50% tax quite easy. So this is one of the things, right? And I don't know if any of you have ever, I don't know if any of you ever got to grips with the rise and fall of the Roman Empire with Christopher Plummer in 1969, was it 1970? And one of the things that was researched for that film was Christopher Plummer, who actually played oh God, he played Commodus, right? And Marcus Aurelius was obviously played by another actor. Marcus Aurelius said, "Look, I want to give Rome back its sort of sense of pride. Not taxing people. I want to get rid of the emperors. Because we're taking too much money from people, right?" And that was one thing that was sort of made out in the film. So by the time of Julius Caesar, right, by the time of the great Julius Caesar, there's a period of imperial honesty in taxing, right? So anyway, this image, before we talk about Julius Caesar and Augustus and taxing, right, this image itself, a tax collector from the Rhineland. Oh my God, we've got the Rhineland again. That's in Germany. My God, another piece of set of Roman remains in Germany. A tax collector from Rhineland, then under Roman rule, counts his money, right? So even in the carvings, even in the way they're portraying the world, the Romans like to say, look, we're collecting taxes. So Julius Caesar and Augustus recognized and tried to remedy the abysmal situation in regard to some of these taxes. So when Augustus came to power into the late 20s BC, right? So we get to about 20 BC, Augusta, the first proper emperor, decided to abolish taxes which the farmers were paying, right? And there we go. Italy and Rome were exempt from direct taxes, right? When everybody else is paying taxes. Interesting enough, Rome itself, under Augustus, by about 20 years BC, there's only a 1% tax on goods in Italy, a 1% tax. Just think about that, just a 1% tax, right? But usually, year on year out, that was increasing and increasing and increasing and increasing, right? So obviously, a lot needs, okay, a lot needs to sort of be paid out for this growing empire, right? And this will be quite interesting, right? Some very sad news. I've just been shown that Ozzy Osbourne has just died at the age of 76. Very, very sad. So I'm just going to mention this, that when things started to develop, right, by AD 90, right, some people that were earning a lot of money, prostitutes, paid a 10% tax on prostitution. Think about this as well. There's more things that are coming into play, right? As we get into the AD 100s and we come up to the AD 200s, there's a 5% death tax duty, right, for every Roman citizen. And there's something quite sinister here, right? death tax duty, 5% death tax duty, right? So obviously we've got a death tax duty in modern day society, right? And for some people, some parents who pass away, the death tax duty is going to be quite high. So the reason why I'm talking about this is because, right, is simply because lots of these ideas of taxes are nothing new. Lots of these ideas of taxes come from the Roman world. So you can blame the Romans for death tax. This is really interesting. On the death of Emperor Septimus Severus, which we'll come back onto, on the death of Emperor Septimus Severus, in AD 211. And which city did Septimus Severus die, Roger? You've been there with me, Rog. Come on, Rog. Oh, Roger's hopeless. Eboracum, York. Septimus Severus, the Roman emperor, died.
Switched on York, yeah.
Thanks, Rog. You said there eventually. And who became Septimus Severus's main offspring to actually become emperor other than Geta? It was Caracalla, right? Now, on the death of Septimus Severus, what happened is that up until that point, only citizens in the Roman Empire paid a death tax of 5%, right? But people in Britain were not citizens of the Roman Empire, right? Lots of people in the Middle East were not citizens of the Roman Empire. So on coming to be emperor, right, Caracalla edict was that everybody within the border of the Roman Empire in Britain, all over the place, was to become a citizen. In doing so, the death tax duty on every single person in the Roman Empire was going to be 5% from that moment onwards, right? So basically, after AD 212, they started levy 5% taxes, for example, on sales of slaves. And interesting enough, this property tax was back. There was a poll tax. The Romans introduced the poll tax many years before Margaret Thatcher. And guess what? There was another tax as well. Roger, when you go for a pee, Roger, when you go for a pee, right?
Yeah.
You've got to pay a tax on it.
Oh.
It's true.
And then sell the urine for tanning. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But there's a tax on urine, right? So when you let's talk about it, Roger, right? We're not going to be crude, Rog. You've sorted out your attire, Rog, right?
Yeah.
Can I have a denarii out of the 5 denarii that you sold your pee for, Rog?
Yeah. The thing with all this is how do the authorities know?
Yeah, go on.
The authorities know exactly what to tax you on. It's okay, individuals, they get some tax, but they got to judge you on what you earn or make. You know, you think, oh, they must have another check to make sure you're declaring all your earnings to get the tax.
Well, the thing is, Roger, if you can't get away with having a pee unless you go in the bushes, right? So when you're selling your pee, right? I know you're making a bit of money out of it, but at the end of the day, you've got to pay a tax on your pee. So you know,
must be good.
Oh, thanks, Rog. That's really good, Rog. That was really cool. So also what's happening is that what we're finding is that slowly but surely there's more aggressive taxes. There's taxes on wheat, there's taxes on linen, there's taxes on papyrus, there's going to be taxes on silk coming from the Far East. There's massive taxes on mining, for example, in Spain. Where there's 40,000 miners, a large amount of slaves. If the owners of those mines didn't pay their taxes, the state would take your slaves off you, right? Your state would take the miners off you, right? And use those miners elsewhere. So there was no way of avoiding these taxes. All these taxes together by the 200s, by the mid 200s, together supplied enough in good times to pay for the army, the slim civil service, and entertaining the Roman populace without at first oppressing the provinces. But it left no surplus for bad times. What's that, Rog?
Did they have anything on houses like window tax or door tax or doorknob taxes?
Well, you've got you've got you would have had lots of taxes being introduced for this is one of the things in the early stages of the Roman world, sort of in the 400s. There were taxes on everything, or they would try because there was no set rules. We're going to talk about the rules in a short while. There were no set rules in the Roman world.
Right.
So and this is the thing, the point I was trying to make. So there's enough money around to pay for everything in slim times. No, start again. There's enough money to pay for everything in good times when there's no war. But when there is a war, right, you've got to raise other taxes, right? And those taxes have to be doubled, quadrupled, right? The system, the money itself was actually being debased, right? So there was a tax on the money, right? So in other words, what we're talking about is that what we're really talking about there is that say you've got a silver coin and by about the 200s, the amount of silver in a coin was greatly reduced. So, but by the time you get to the end of the 300, but by the time you get to the end of the 200s, it's likely that a silver coin contained only 5 to 10% silver, right? Um, um, that coin is still expected to have the same value, but money, in the sense of value in silver in that coin, there was nothing left, right? And do you know what? That's the same with modern day money. Um, the copper coin that we use today, right,
Right.
has a slither of copper on the outside of it, right? In a modern day silver coin, right, there is approximately under 5% of that coin is actually copper. In fact, I would say more like 2%, right? Because it's a slither on the top. So we do it today. They're all the things in the past we see today. You know, all the things that we see, all the things that we see in history are being repeated. Um, so as we start to get into beyond the 200s, right? So in the reign of Septimus Severus had an army of 400,000 men and increased its pay. And not so long after, in the reign of Caracalla, the Roman army contained 500,000 soldiers. Septimus Severus was campaigning in Britain. He was campaigning, for example, on the Germanic frontier. He was campaigning against tribes in Africa. He was campaigning against the Persians and the Parthians and all those other people in the Middle East, right? And all of this needed an army. And there you go. The tax burden was immense. So that basically meant that there was less industry because people didn't want to do as much as they used to do. Make because they'd be so. Say for example, you ran a pottery, right? This is what was happening to the potteries. So if you made too many pots, your tax burden was going to be too much. So what's the point in making the pots? It's like, for example, if I ever did a big film, right? If I ever did a big film and I got paid £1 million, right? It's quite likely that I would lose about £800,000 of that in tax. And I'm not exaggerating. So this is where we get this idea of this tax burden from. And it was basically what the emperors kept saying. They said, we want more taxes for the armies. We want more taxes. We want more taxes for a luxuriant life, right? So ignorant of economics, emperors debased the coinage, hitting the administration worst of all with a raging inflation that made soldiers pay worthless. Um, did you know? Did you know, for example, I don't know if you've ever seen an episode of Time Team where Tony Robinson has got a wheelbarrow of 1 pence pieces. And in that wheelbarrow, he's gone to the Time Team have organized to have 50,000 pennies in that wheelbarrow, right? And Tony Robinson has got this wheelbarrow and he's pushing it across a field, right? Because in Britain we found more than one coin hoard with 50,000 coins in it, right? And then and I gotta get my facts and figures out of my head a minute. It's in my library there. I gotta remember it right. Yeah, a wheelbarrow of pennies, right? If and those pennies represented a single worthless Roman coin, right? And that single wheelbarrow would represent, I think, I don't know, 3 weeks Roman wages pay for a single Roman soldier. So you can imagine, right? Roman soldiers didn't want this. And this money would be sent out to pay for the soldiers. And they just, we don't want this. And when we find all these coins in big holes in the ground, is because they're worthless, right? Um, and this is what Tony Robbins. Did I say Tony Blair? I meant Tony Robbins. Did I say Tony Blair, Michelle? I didn't mean Tony Blair. I meant Tony Robinson. When Tony Robinson was doing this on Time Team, I think what we were trying to say was that into the 250s and 260s, right? The value of Roman coinage was basically nothing. So there was a Roman emperor called Galenus in AD 253 to AD 268, right? Galenus had crack troops in front of him, and they said, "We're not working for you." And Galena said, "Why aren't you working for us? Because we don't want these crap coins. We don't want these coins which are valueless, right?" Um, so Galenus basically said, "I tell you what if I pay you with coins that are made from real silver and they work for him, right?" Um, so this is the problem with what's going on with the Roman Empire. This, in many ways, is why the Roman Empire started to fall apart and collapse. By the time you get into the 400s, in the Emperor Diocletian, in the 300s, for example, um, there's a massive reform of the tax system, right? A massive reform of the tax system. And there's a poll tax. And the poll tax had to be paid in cash. And this was under Diocletian. And basically, it hit the poorest people hardest. And this itself, by the 300s, is the beginning of the end of the Roman Empire, right? And basically, right, as things start to decay, right, in the Roman Empire, it's because there's heavier and heavier and heavier taxes. And there's another reason why there's heavier and heavier taxes is because the Roman Empire has to bribe people trying to invade the Roman Empire. So in other words, they would go to people and say, "Right, let's have all your money. It's got to be proper silver money. It's got to be proper gold money because we've got to pay people off, you know." And this is what was going on. So that sort of gives you an overall idea of the Roman tax system, right? I know that was quite sort of pseudo lengthy, but that sort of gives you an idea about what's going on. So when you've with taxes comes law, right? And buildings, right? To have law, um, you need buildings like this, right? So your taxes build buildings like this, right? Vis-a-vis, um, your laws would be set out in buildings like this. And obviously you could have tax laws, but basically law is in justice as well. And this is the immense Basilica Nova in Rome, become one of the great law courts of the later empire, right? And look at this. Can you imagine what this would have been like? Each of those wonderful panels there would be set with gold leaf, would be set with beautiful fresco work, right? But obviously, it's all come off the walls. But this itself is basically in Rome. So this is the hub of the Roman world. So the Romans prided themselves self on excellence. They prided themselves on a sense of justice as well. But when we start thinking about the early stages of Rome, things weren't as good. But just as a little bit of introduction, Rome based lots of its laws on the Greeks. The Greeks. The Romans saw the Greeks as far superior in lots of things, so they basically nicked their idea of the laws, and obviously taxed them heavily as well. In its imposing entirety, Roman laws is one of Rome's greatest glories and legacies. Well, you can obviously get an idea that even taxes are quite a legacy of Rome. Justice a legacy of Rome. right? Well, if you're a Christian, you're being tarred in the Colosseum and you're being set alight. Well, obviously, you shouldn't have been a Christian. But other than that, Roman laws were quite just sometimes. So Roman law is one of this great glory. However, it did not emerge fully formed, but evolved slowly from custom and experience and reached its final form only with the codification of laws, which actually happened way after the Western Roman Empire collapsed under the reign of the very great Emperor Justinian in between AD 527 and AD 565. So, in other words, the best laws were actually in the East after the Western Empire had collapsed. Irony there, eh? Irony. So, so when we got to use the words like democratic and concerned with the concepts of liberty. Roman laws were not at all democratic or concerned with concepts of liberty and justice, but were as pragmatic as the Romans themselves. So as it started to develop. So obviously the great codification of the laws wasn't until the 500s AD. Obviously things had a bit of a weird start. So again, the Romans loved sticking things on coins. For example, this coin itself, the altar on this coin struck at Lyon in France, the Gallic capital, was for the combined worship of Augustus and Rome itself. The emperor found himself forced to judge more and more law cases, despite the many other demands on his time. So to get the best justice, you would go to the emperor. And if the emperor was a bit annoyed that day, you might end up in the Colosseum. So really, what we get an idea of is a hard grasp, is a hard idea of how laws are developing from about 400 BC. For long, and before that, right, people made up the law as it went along. Right, so before the 400s, people just made it up. So if you didn't like somebody, right, you were picking your nose and going to execute you. So Rome actually decided that it needs to set out these codificational laws. It needed to do it. But before that, right, things needed to develop and things needed to become more humane rather than despotic. So lots of these laws would be sort of devised, and actually lots of the Roman laws would come through the medieval a sense of medieval Europe, and would be still active, and some are still active today, right? So what we've got really when we're talking about all of this, right? Um, there's something known as the 12 tables of the law, right, which is key. So up into the 400s, up into the 400s, right? The different areas of the Roman world governed themselves, right? So Rome would have had a different law than sort of another client city down the road, right? And basically there was nothing codified, and it would be also up for interpretation, right? So if Rome said, "Oh, we've got to do this," and then a town down the road before the 400s, they would interpret the law, and the official and the judge would interpret the law. And so basically, there was this very strange way of doing things initially, right? And one of the words that comes up quite distinctively a lot when we're talking about the Roman world is the magistrate, right? The magistrate is the be all and end all of everything, really. So, in before the 400s, a magistrate that could also, on his own initiative, issue new legislative edicts. So, in other words, we don't like Jews in the city. Well, just that's it. Just get rid of them. Or we don't like people coming into the city with a certain type of wine. Just get rid of it. So people would make things up as they go along. However, suddenly somewhere they come up with what's called the 12 tables of Rome, right? The 12 tables of law, right? And then this comes down, for example, from here, Greece. So the Roman law comes down from Greece. So as I've said, so traditionally the 10 men charged with drawing up the 12 tables of the law in 451 BC visited Athens for inspiration And this is when this was being constructed. Can you imagine? Right, let's have a quick chat with these Greeks, a bit more wiser than the Romans, right? Look at that there. They're building the Parthenon, right? And they had inspiration from the Parthenon, for example, to write these laws. So, in other words, these 12 laws of Rome, and we might come across these again. So let's just have a little look at these. So these 12 tables, these 12 tables of the law, were written down. Well, was it written down on the 24th of August in the year 451 BC? But it was definitely 451 BC, and it was actually written down on tablets. Can you see that there? Tablets, stone tablets. The law had to be written down on stone tablets. Now that's very interesting, because if you carve things into stone, you can't alter it, really. It's a bit like books. Do you see my point? If they're verbal laws, then they can change. But if you carve them into stone, right, that's what they did. It's a bit like it's a bit like Moses going up and having the Ten Commandments, right? They're written down. Thou shalt not kill, So these are actually written in stone. So the plebeians, the common people, everyone, everybody, the plebeians as well, the set, well, not the common people, the plebeians, sort of a group of people within Roman society, not so much Paul. So the laws of the tables would be something that would be exacted in Latin, right? And the laws would then be learnt by schoolboys. So the 12 laws would be learnt by schoolboys. It's like the Ten Commandments. They know the 12 laws. Okay. And basically this is influenced by the Greeks. The 12 tables of the law, subject matter as well as their language, is very Roman. A mixture of general principles, minutely detailed private and public law, right? So, in a way where we get our idea of fairness and justice today, is come down from Rome. Okay. Among the laws, the citizen's right to appeal to the assembly against any magistrate's judgment involving a capital penalty or exile, which is quite an amazing law, because somebody has decided you're going to die, right? Up until that point, Roger, it's tough. You're going to die. But in this law that was laid down in 451 BC, you could appeal to the judgment against a penalty of death or exile. Later, this mutated into appealing unto Caesar. So, in other words, what would then happen is that the only way it sort of mutated a little bit. So, instead of appealing to a group of people and saying, look, it's unfair that I'm going to be executed because, my wife's going to be without a breadwinner and, my children are going to die, blah, 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 right? So what's happening? Thank you. What's happening is that you then appeal to Caesar, so which was quite interesting, right? So that would make things very complicated. But this protection was one of limited use. A magistrate could still, in certain circumstances, have a criminal summarily executed without any trial. So, in other words, I'm sorry, he's dead. He could have appealed, but he's no longer with us. Many other laws dealt with the facts of rural life, referring to trees cut down or animals that wandered off. Most Romans were still small farmers, but all laws were administered by urban officials. The 12 tables generally confirmed the far-reaching paternal power of the father over all his children. So, do you see something there? Right, it's known as pater familias. So, in other words, in the Victorian period in Britain, right, women were inferior to men in Victorian society, right? I know that when I'm studying women getting into archaeology, they can't study archaeology, right? Um, women couldn't bathe in Victorian society. They couldn't even vote in Victorian society, right? That comes down from the Roman. It doesn't come down from Scandinavian societies who saw the role of women more important than men or as equal to men. It comes down from this Roman idea that men are far more superior and the men rule the family, right? It's even in today's society, isn't it? A woman is basically, well, who's the father? Well, why was she? Why does she need to do that? But you see what I mean? And women, and this idea of, sorry, I'm going to go off on a political thing. Sorry about this. Why do women have to declare that they're Miss, Ms, or Mrs. Right? When men can just say they're Mister? That's all come down from the Roman world because it all comes down to the fact that men are far more superior to women, right, in the Roman world, right? And that's come down into the Victorian world. And we've got to undo that in legislation and in law, up until a few years ago, right? For example, at the time of the Second World War, a man could decide to keep the children and the woman would be left without the children, right? The man would be the one who decides all that. The man would be the one who decides the divorce, right? This all comes down from the Roman world. So Rome is really influencing where we're at with these things. So no matter how mature or important they might be in civil life, even if they had become consuls, sons could not make wills or take part in any legal transaction. It was the father. Only the father could decide, right? Only the father could decide who the legitimate heir is. Blah blah blah. In theory, a father's power extended to killing his children, although this was rarely excised. So in other words, this really has echoed down into our modern day and age, right? This is a statue. A statue along one of the statues at Capua, south of Rome. This is the Via Appia. This is meant along the Via Appia, if you remember, at the time of Spartacus in 71 BC. 6,000 people were crucified along the Via Appia, all the way from Capua to Rome. This is a statue. This is one of many statues along that length. And this is that great trackway. This is how a Roman road should be, Judith, with statues and mausoleums alongside it, which we don't really have. So again, this is really important, folks. It's a really sad one, but we're going to do it, right? Infanticize the exposure of children who were unwanted because they were deformed or simply superficial to the father's needs, right? On the other hand, this was very common. It was very common to just get rid of girls, right? Just girls just discarded and they're not needed, and this is the other thing as well, is I've said so many times, and let's just understand this in the idea of Roman law, right? Roman law. This might be a feminine statue, but women don't have really many rights in the Roman world. Women themselves only had a level of rights after the age of 25, right? So only when a woman reaches 25 can a woman have a similar, not as great. A woman has to get to 25 before she's got any real rights. Then she can gain the right to manage her own property if her husband's dead. But if her husband's still alive, she's got no rights at all. And actually, I've got to be honest with you. I've read this somewhere, right? Somebody's saying, Black Patch's dog online. Nice to have you on YouTube. He said, so they were chauvinists as well as butchers. Yeah, Black Patch's dog. You are right. See, I told you, Black Patch's dog. I'm not a great fan of Rome, really. Anyway, so this, and I was reading something a while back. There were very few women in Roman Italy, right? That were really powerful. There were very, very few, right? Even those that their husband died and the husband willed, he could will to his wife. That the property didn't go to the wife. It should go to a male heir. It never went to the wife, but occasionally it would. And there's very few instances where that actually happened anyway, even though it was possible in Roman law at the age of 25. Um, so so one of the things that we're looking at, right, and we've got a nice little band of people on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe and like and even press the join button. Law reforms. This is a great one. Yeah, I like this one. And you know what? Right, one image that I didn't tell you about before. There was an image that I chucked up here which I didn't put on before. Right, this one. Right, entrance to Ostia. Right, and this was a customs duty post. Where everything passing through you would be charged 2.5% of everything that come in through the ports. There we go. I want to show you that. I just noticed that then. I hadn't done it. Right. So this is a really nice one. Oh, we'll leave this a minute. Let's have a little bit more of a natter. So law reforms in the Roman world. Oh, people are always thinking about law reforms. So such stark spelling out of the laws did not help to diffuse social tensions. For the plebeians could now see for themselves the iniquities of many existing laws. So, in other words, you've got a tax system, right? You've got all these laws, right? So, to redress this, about 30 laws were passed that would alter citizenship over 4 centuries, right? Talking about inheritance as a citizen to inherit whatever, and sort of revoking the inheritance rights and various laws. All these different things were happening. So at one stage, different things would be happening within the Roman law. Going back to the tax system as well, a slave was seen as a commodity, right? That's another thing. It was a chattel. It was a commodity. Within law, slaves had no rights, right? They belonged to the person that owned them. So that's a tax thing. So they belonged. So you were actually part of the chattels of of the male of the family. So there you go. This itself, right? This itself, and it's 218, right? So I'm gonna tell you what we're gonna do after the break. We're going to do the police and secret police of Rome. Oh God, we're not going to do punishment. I want to say that till next week. We're going to finish this bit. I'm going to have a little look at this now, and then we'll have a break. We'll just finish this section here anyway. I'll look at this one. So one of the strengths of Roman law from the 12 tables of 451 BC onwards was its attention to minute practical detail, which allowed even poorer citizens, such as that woman there, such as this woman Agrosia from Ostia, to practice their trade freely and relatively peacefully, right? So even though the woman doesn't really have the same rights as a male, she's able to trade, which is two different things, right? You're able to trade as a woman. Where that money went, right, is another thing altogether. But you are able to trade, right? So that's the really interesting thing, right? So again, a woman doesn't have as many rights as a man. She can trade, but where that money goes is another story. Mind you, if she was alone and single, then under the eyes of the law, that's her money. But let's not talk about that too much, because Rome didn't like that. So what we've got all these different laws. And there was also something else that there was. You think about this formulations of laws. This formulation of laws would be specially defined in law courts. So when you're thinking about a great building like this, the great law courts would be influenced by the strength of the 12 tables of law. from 451, even though there's things added to them. Oh yeah, and obviously there were other laws about people from outside the Roman Empire. There was sort of laws within laws, and sort of laws for citizens and laws for people who weren't sort of Roman citizens, and there was laws for foreigners, foreign laws and so on. So what I think we'll do, it's 8:20, right? And anyone online want to add something, then they can do so. So what we're going to do after the break, we're going to look at police and the secret police, right? Now, there's one thing that you don't hear about at all, right? Is Roman police, right? Now, I remember doing some research on this ages ago, and I didn't really come up with much, but you are going to hear the answer today. What was the role of the police on the police state, right? And yeah, that's going to be answered. So let's just there's more history this week than strictly archaeology, but it's good to get your bits and pieces right together to understand the Roman world a lot more. Right. So Anne, anything you want to say, darling?
Yeah, it's very interesting how laws today, it would sound, are very influenced by that long ago. I suppose.
100%.
Yes, I mean it's just amazing, really, that we still have echoes of those laws here.
And they are massive echoes. There's a big point I want to make on this. I want to make a big point on this. Roman civilization massively influences American civilization, modern day US civilization. So when Paine and Washington and Price are putting together the Constitution, they're massively influenced on the Roman strictures of government and justice and law and all the rest of it. I think they wrote a little bit of the woman stuff out of it, because I don't think that women in America would have stuck up for that. But when you look at in many ways, when you listen to me, I say that the legacy of Rome is Christianity, right? It's a lot more than that, because people would argue, oh, it's Roman roads. Well, hang on, Judith, find me a Roman road, isn't it, Judith? There's not many about. So, right, what have we got? What have we got left from the idea of Rome? Well, how we treated women, how we treated women way into the early 1900s. That's because of the Romans. It's because the way women were treated in Scandinavia was completely different from the way women were treated here, right? When even under the czars of Russia, Catherine the Great, you don't need me to say any more. Women were treated differently. It was in Britain that women were treated very poorly, right? And women, in many ways, were still in that period of control into the 1950s, 60s, and so on. It was still taboo for a woman to be divorced, to claim divorce in the 1950s. That's down to the Romans, right? And so is the legacy of Rome just Christianity? No, the legacy of Rome is a lot of these things that we're talking about. So and yeah. So okay then. Anything from you, David?
No, thank you.
Judith?
No, thank you.
Roger?
No.
Drina?
How about the architecture?
What?
Say that again?
Architecture. The
What about it?
buildings. Well, that's a legacy from Rome, isn't it? If you want a posh building, it looks like a Roman temple.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. So the yeah, that's well, yeah. I had to read what you were saying there. So yeah, actually, there's 2 points for this. If you Roger knows this. If you go to the heart of Cardiff, right, there's a civic precinct where you've got the museum, where you've got City Hall, where you've got the law courts, right? This looks like an area of of Roman influenced temples, right? It's a complete, you've got plazas, you've got open courtyard areas, you've got columns and so on. And that's being influenced into the 1910s and the 1920s. And that's being influenced from Roman civilization. And when you look at the tops of museums, it's the Latin is there. It says, King so and so, King William decided to open this building, and there's little plaques, and there's tabulature all over the place. And this is Drina. That goes without saying. Well, it should be said. You've said it, but yeah. Thank you for that, Drina. Right, Roger.
No, nothing but tech. It's interesting with the numbers, though, numerals, and your MDCCC and all that business.
Yeah.
Archaic.
Something else. Exactly.
Yeah.
It didn't happen with me. I was in the year that they stopped it, but the year previous, I could have done Latin. My God, Latin! Nick, we were still learning Latin in school. Amazing. Yeah, and the numbers, the alphabet.
Certain grammar rules in English must be like the Latin, split infinitive. Well,
yeah, exactly.
What we like with Latin is one thing, but why worry about what happened in Latin when we can split an infinitive, say it instead of just it's nice, it's really nice, it adds to the expression. Some people say it wasn't in Rome, So what? This is what annoys me, that you develop a language for what you need today and where you are.
Yeah.
And this nonsense with MDCCM and all that. It's okay, it should be dropped, and let's get on with something we can see easily.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I agree. It's a part of the past, but I get to say something taboo. If you're going to get rid of that, you get rid of Christianity. You get rid of another religion that's so close to it, Islam. You get rid of all these things that are sort of Roman influenced. And if you're going to start again, it's a huge revolution, Roger.
Oh, yeah. Don't really.
It's a huge revolution. Right, Margaret.
Oh, I can't remember what I was going to say.
Don't want you blown away. I want to get onto the police. I want to do the police. I got to feed my sheep.
Yeah, these days we have a jury of 12 that picked at random from the general public. Did that start in Rome? Did they have that judicial process?
It's a bit queer that we got the 12, we got these 12 laws, right? These 12 tables, and we've got 12 men and women true, and that type of thing. I think that's too much of a coincidence, love. Yeah, that's there. Yeah.
Yeah. Must be.
Where are those laws that are written in stone? Are they in a museum somewhere?
They're with Lloyd George somewhere. It's basically I can't answer that question, and that's a very powerful question. That's not really part of the archaeological world that I'm trying to build up, but yeah, that's a bit of homework for you next week, Margaret. Where are those 12 tablets? Yeah, where are they?
Where have they gone?
Where have they gone? Because this is like a uranium clock. This sets everything, right? So those laws must be somewhere special. That's your homework, love.
Thank you.
Judith, tell us what you want to tell us
about
goats.
Rome.
I don't know. Talk to us.
Gather.
I don't know. What is it you wanted to say?
Right, we'll have a break now. We'll have a break now. Hey! But look at this, right? It was so great, and I just thought, I just got to get all my tapes now. Michelle said, "Oh, can I listen to your granddad, who's well gone?" I thought, right, I got a tape from my granddad. I'm going to listen to him again, right? If that's recorded in your phone, it's going to be gone,
Yeah.
So
that's right.
Hey, I don't know what the answer is, but I think the way we're doing things in modern society is not going to work, right? Yeah. Does anyone know how computers work? Because they don't keep things. Do you know what? Just one quick thing, right? in 2000, somebody come to me and they said, "Oh, we can set up a website for you. You'll be one of the first archaeological doodads with a website, right?" And it was like you had to pay like £100 a month, which was a hell of a lot of money 25 years ago, and this and that and whatever, right? So I didn't pay it 1 month. All the information disappeared.
Oh,
Shocking. Shocking.
Yeah, this is the point, though. This is the point, though. It's not out there in the ether. It's gone. Right, right. Okay, then, guys. I want us to finish at 9 or thereabout. So we're gonna have a 10-minute break. Go off and
Can I
get
take
something
a
to drink, and I'll be back.
I'm gonna have to go now. I'm so
Oh.
tired.
I'm going now.
I've
Good
been.
night, all.
Oh,
Bye,
Oh, you're
David.
going as
Bye,
well,
David.
David. Okay, then. Oh, okay. Night, night, David and Margaret.
Good night.
See you soon. Bye.
Night, night,
Bye.
you two.
Bye.
Was this something I said? Night, night, David.
Good night.
Night, 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 night. Right. Okay, I'm going to take a break. Right. Okay. See you next week, David.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
I know Roger's not listening to this, but he just needs to get a life. I think, Rog.
who?
I gotta get up. What? Hey,
What?
Rog, I wasn't talking about you. Honestly, it was
No,
fine.
I know, no, that's right. Yes,
Yeah,
just let my tea cool down. Can't take
yeah.
it
Oh
hot.
yeah, I got a cup of tea, Lev.
Yeah, I like you
I
with
got a cup.
tea.
I got a cup of coffee. Rog, stop interrupting, Rog.
All right. Well, are you?
What's that, Rog? What? Right. Okay, then we're back on. Right, we're back on. I don't think I don't think. Oh God, what?
Why not?
That was a bit strange, Dave, wasn't it? I thought you would have liked a bit of law and order.
What?
I thought Dave would have liked a bit of law and order, and Margaret wanted a bit of bondage. It's all part of the fun,
Yeah.
you know. Well, the thing is, right? The thing is, Rog, did you know that Drina's invited me over her place, right? And
I'll ask no more.
oh,
Mhm.
what? What are you on about, Rog? What are you on about? Ask no more. What are you trying to
But
say?
in case of something, a secret liaison or something, I don't know.
Well, it was nothing that I need to hide from Michelle. Me and Drina go back a long way.
Mm. Oh,
Right.
that's nice, isn't it?
So, Rog,
What?
this is the big question. Um, have you ever come across any references to the Romans having police?
No, I've often wondered that myself. It's as if it's just well, the armies.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in many ways, Roger, in many ways, if you go with that thinking, you can think that before the Bow Street Runners, if you want to go back way back into the 1800s, then the beginning of the 1800s, um, you would have had you would have had mobs for law and order in Britain, and the army and all that type of stuff,
Yeah, one
and
aristocracy.
magistrates and
Yeah,
yeah.
take
So
care of stuff.
yeah, we'll take care of it ourselves, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, police and the secret police, right? They did exist, Roger. So
Yeah.
one of the things is that this is the Emperor Tiberius. Yeah. So We're talking about around the time of Jesus Christ, that type of thing. And Tiberius centralized the crack Praetorian Guard in a special camp in Rome, where they were controlled by one individual. So the Praetorian Guard, right? The crack Praetorian Guard, because Tiberius was getting suspicious of them, right? He decided to chuck them into a special camp in Rome. Are the Praetorian Guard 2,000 years ago what we're talking about in regards to the secret police? We'll go answer that question in a few moments. So for a long time, the Romans lacked two aspects of civil life that seem essential in modern eyes: a professional local or national police force with some form of central criminal detective agency, and perhaps even more notably, a prison service to incarcerate criminals for long-term punishment. But I'm going to argue with that, because when we think about Spartacus, this prison service was the gladiators, right? That's it. End of. That's what we get from the movies anyway.
Or
So
making
keeping law and order, Roger, under the Republic from 367 BC, policing the still quite small city was a task for individuals, right? And these were elected individuals. These were two from the plebeian class and two from the patrician class. There were four people in charge of public order, just four. They were elected in 367 BC. They were elected to offer public order for 1 year in Rome. Four of them. That's it. That's it. Right.
They must have people working for them to do it, carried out though.
But the thing is, there were only four initially. That was the point. That we know that 367 there were four. But actually, Roger, can I just interrupt there a minute? Because when me and Richard have been studying our book on the history of Barry and stuff, and what you see is that when they built the Barry docks, right, there was basically not even a handful of policemen, right? And there were thousands and thousands of people in Barry. It's only when you get, Roger, a problem that you start realizing that you need loads of police, right?
Yeah, insurrection, yeah.
Exactly. However, after 367, as the years go by, there was an individual known as the Praetora Urbanus that helped deal with a growth in crime. So was it just basically a group of citizens, sort of crime stoppers? There was a group of citizen crime stoppers helping those four electable policemen, basically. So this patchy attempt to deal with crime was common, not just in the ancient world, but right up until the 1800s, Roger. As we know, Britain had no proper police force until well into the 1800s, and used to deport those criminals it did not execute, as did the Russians. So in other words, and the French did this as well, just put them on a very terrible island in South America. So that was the French. So in Rome, as things developed under the general light government, minimalist policing worked reasonably well at first, with troops, there we go, from the Praetorian Guard always available as a backup force. So as Rome developed, this Praetorian Guard involving Tiberius, around the birth of Christ, that was the done thing, right? However, from the time of Septimus Severus, that guy again, a secret police was starting to appear. And this was multiplying in its popularity. So in other words, we've got the Praetorians and we've got the secret police. So the later empire, as the time goes on into the 300s, the later empire effectively became a police state whose horrors were limited only by its corruption and incompetence. So in other words, it was a police state becoming slowly. But are these like the policemen that we see around us today? You know, that's the question. Going back to the city of Rome, not the rest of the empire, in the city of Rome itself, whose population must have passed the million mark by around AD 50. 1 million people in Rome. You need a
Wow.
lot more than 4 people and a group of Praetorians to deal with that. Some sort of
Exactly.
police force was clearly necessary, right? So it was realized way before AD 50, right? Augustus realized that they needed a proper police force. Right. So this is like the Bow Street Runners, London. Well, we'll have the police force in London first and see how it goes. Due to the almost total lack of street light in London, not in London, in Rome, there was not street light. Antioch on another thing in Turkey, Antioch was one large city in the empire that had some sort of crude street lighting. Rome became a however, Rome itself became a seriously dark place in the dark, a serious, dangerous place in the dark. There was no street lighting. Although the rich went out with their own bodyguards, not over concerned about what happened to lesser citizens. However, Augustus created 2 new forms of police. Basically, the urban police and the vigiles. So the cohorts urban and the vigiles. Now the cohorts urban, the city cohorts, basically it's another name for police, right? The city police. Okay. So they are the city police force. And here we go. Let's go on to there, right? This is basically what a policeman looked like. So they are 2 sets of policemen. So we're looking basically around 10, we're going into the period of the time after Christ. So the cohorts, urban, which were the city cohorts, who comprised first 3, then 4, and then altogether 500 men to manage Rome, right? 500 men to manage the whole 1 million people were commanded by a senator, the prefect of the city. So one senator who was an elected senator managed 500 men. The cohorts urban, which can you imagine 500 men to manage 1 million? The
Geez,
only
a lot. They
army,
must be well behaved or something, or you know,
yeah, it's
off
really
patrol.
odd because
Hmm.
you know, the only army that was allowed properly in Rome was the Praetorian Guard, but this was actually their police force, right?
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
only armed force left directly under the Senate's control, it kept order of a sort in public places. However, Roger, now this is really important. You know, we were talking about influences on modern society. This next one is key. Listen to this, Roger. More effective at night were the vigiles. The vigiles were basically night watchmen, firemen, and there were 1,000 of them. And these were set up to basically patrol the streets at night. What they were looking for, they were making sure that there were no fires. They were making sure that there was no public disorder. There were 1,000 of these that apparently patrolled Rome at night. So you had your basically your 500 sort of cohorts urban in the day, so they would manage the
Yeah,
whole city. You had
yeah.
1,000 of these individuals and these were freed men. They were free people. These patrol, and the reason why this is important, Roger, is because when they originally set up for the police force in Barry, right? The police force in Barry were also what night watchmen, and they were the firemen, right? So in other words, they would have to put out fires as well. So the policemen in Barry had to put out fires as well as watching over Barry, right? So in a way, that comes from this old Roman idea that the police actually managed fires, which
Yeah,
is quite
you
odd,
were.
really,
Yeah,
right? So this individual here, although theoretically part of the regular army, the Praetorians were in reality quite different. Paid more and retiring earlier, they lived in Rome and often, like this guard, were not obliged to wear full armor. So these Praetorians would then support the watchmen, the firemen, the cohorts urban. But when you think about it, Roger, that's if you'd like 2,500 men, that's to manage 1 million. That's nothing.
Right, exactly. That's why it must be well behaved or something. You know what I mean?
It,
Do
yeah, there's something else going on. However,
yes,
they
weird.
seem, however, to have been more concerned with fighting fire than crime, and they carried buckets and pumps with them. But on their regular patrols through the city, they must have also acted as some sort of deterrent for crime. But despite this, we can assume that Rome remained dangerous at night. Well, as a guy holding a bucket, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So what really started to happen? What really started to happen was um, Septimus Severus again, right?
right. Amazing. Yeah,
This is the Arch of Septimus Severus, right? This is the Arch of
yeah,
Septimus Severus in Rome. Backing up these unimpressive forces were obviously the Praetorian Guard. Septimus Severus paid the Praetorian Guard twice be expected. And this Praetorian Guard would act to assist any problems in Rome. So these Imperial Guard, however, not used for day-to-day policing, but to suppress popular riots or conspiracies. Although the Pax Romana established by Augustus around, coming into the birth of Christ and beyond that and so on, meant an end to large-scale brigandry. There were still plenty of robbers around, even in the mountains of Italy. And at times, small-scale military operations were needed to suppress them. Roger, this is a bit like 1700s Wales, because what you've got no police force, and you've got these brigands on roads and along the coast. There's nothing really different from this. Elsewhere in the empire, the army was occasionally called in to deal with major uprisings. There was a
yes.
Sicilian
That figures.
revolt
That
in
figures. Yeah.
135 BC. 70,000 slaves united under their king,
Mm.
and they rebelled on Sicily. So in other words, the army was used in between uprisings, and basically the local magistrates of cities around the empire dealt adequately with local crime on a smaller scale, acting as judges. So in other
Well,
words,
the army were well trained
yes.
in
So you had the
combat. So,
army, you had the
yeah.
Praetorian. The army wasn't involved in Rome. The army couldn't march into Rome. So Rome had the Praetorian Guard. It had the police, and then Septimus Severus is establishing the secret police, which we've already mentioned,
Yeah.
right? So
Interesting.
the police state, like all military dictatorships, the emperor made use of spies and informers, which is basically the secret police.
Yeah.
That basically discover any conspiracies. Special mounted intelligence officers or Praetorian guards, regular officers who sometimes travelled around the empire. So there were people who were going around the empire to make sure, that everything was flowing well, and there was no corruption. But the
Yeah.
wiser emperors did not rely too much on these individuals. Despite this, Trajan. So we'll go back to Trajan. This is the Emperor Trajan, the great Emperor Trajan. Okay, so the great Emperor Trajan, one of the best of the emperors in the Senate's view, started a new form of intelligence service known as the Frementari. So the Frementari, so obviously you've got Trajan, then you've got Hadrian. So this guy is around the 100s, the AD 100s. And the Frementari, by the reign of Septimus Severus, which is now. Roger, I need to take this call a minute, okay? 1 second. Hello?
Hello. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, sorry. Roger, there's an important call just coming in a moment. I just need to call this number back a second. So
Yeah.
can you just talk to everybody a minute? Because I've got to get this call. It's a work call. 1 second.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I've got to get this call. 1 sec. Um, I'll just give it a ring now. So Roger, you keep the side a minute.
Yeah. Carry on. Do your thing.
Okay, I'll be back now. I'll be back. So talk to the ladies.
Yeah, can't see anybody yet. Yeah.
Oh, hang on. I'll put the ladies on a minute. We'll get back to the police in a second. Right, here we go. 1 second. Right, here we go. I'll get this now. You talk a minute, Roger.
Hello, ladies. How are you?
And how are you? You're all looking well.
Yes, well, you're bearing up. But yes, I was in the hospital yesterday for eye treatments. I get it now and again, keep it all
Oh,
going.
yeah.
So I stayed put for a few days to let it heal a bit, and then back on form.
Oh, good.
My kid's coming down tomorrow, so we're doing a few things on holiday next month. So that'll be it then. Had a few things to do lately, what with dentists, uh, sort out a few things with the house. The smart meter had to be replaced because of changes. Another little thing, I've got to have the boiler serviced, the carpets cleaned, and some repairs done for leakage. Rain,
So,
rain.
so you're
So
all
there we are, catching up.
yeah.
So finally, by the end of this week, change. Well, got this infection thing I've had. See, Tom Jones has got an upper tract infection or something. Same thing. It's one of these things that goes on forever. The main thing goes with the niggly cough thing, tickly. But I'd like to see the doc again, but going slow. You both fit? All of you fit?
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
That's nice. But you don't need anything now with things and plenty of bugs around. You catch it up traveling around trains and stuff, and it's too easy. But a lot of
Yeah.
people have this cough thing.
Coffee.
And the upper respiratory tract.
Mm.
It's from the trachea and throat. I always get throat things anyway.
I hadn't heard about that going around.
So then we are, that's going. So I think, right, get the act together now and start to enjoy ourselves, whatever the weather's doing. I'm not sure what that is. You've had rain up there much or
No,
dreamers?
a lot. I think it's raining at the minute. It seems to be, but it's
And you, man,
we haven't
you're
had
okay.
anything like as much as the forecast. We've
No,
got
we've missed a lot of
storms.
this.
I didn't see any storms. Saw
No,
some
lots of
heavy
mid
rain.
Wales and that, but it's missed us. But odd showers and bits might be something later on here. I don't know. Can't tell.
No, it's hard to tell. It's very dull, and it looks as though it could be raining.
Yes, yeah, no.
Could be
At
just
least it's
dull.
not too hot. The thing I don't like is just can't do anything. Not used to it. Don't want
No.
it. Keep it.
No.
No, but we need some, don't we? I didn't.
Yeah, well, I can't go up in the sun anyway. I got these things. I'm recovering from things here.
Yeah.
Sun damage.
Yeah.
But I've been had treatment. It takes time to recover from it and
Yes.
get it back again. It's too touchy the skin. Like my mother, I think. So there we are. Something else. But yeah, so we'll look forward to the holiday. It's nice to be in the sunshine
Mm.
in the shadows. Nice and
Yeah.
warm, but not too bad.
Yes.
Go to North
Definitely.
Wales next. Well, that's changed. So you traveling anywhere or anything on the go, or do much in holidays?
I'm not going on a holiday, but I'm going. Probably won't be here next week. I might get back in time. I'm going down. I'm going to see one of my daughters I haven't seen for
Oh,
ages.
yeah.
But,
Oh, that's nice. Yeah,
that'll be
catch
nice
up.
to see her. Yeah.
I've got my daughter's birthday Sunday, so we're all gathering up there
Oh, great. Great.
near Newport, Risca, near Newport. That's where they're doing.
Oh,
Just moved
you don't want
house.
to go to Newport, Rog.
No, they just moved house, so it's all settling now. They had to have a new boiler straight away.
I knew an old boiler, Rog.
Yeah, I know. Originally, it was a brewery, wine back, but it's a nice place there so far, better than the other.
Oh, I'm back on it. Right,
Sorry.
sorry. Yeah, I had to confirm tomorrow, and I'm lucky I did. They wanted me to come in earlier, so that's fine. That's fine. So anyway,
Well,
where
yeah.
were we? We were looking at the police. Let's go back to it.
Police state.
Police being one of the Praetorian Guard and how they dealt
The
with it all.
police state.
The police state. Yeah, that's where we were.
Is that familiar to today? It is.
Yeah,
Yes, let's go.
it's looking very like it. Yes.
You know, everything. Lots of what we've been saying tonight. It's just like parallels in the modern day and age. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just so. It is actually quite frightening, to be honest.
It is. And we never learn anything, do we? We always say we'll
No,
never again. And it happens
we've got
over.
the wars, we've got this, we've got that.
The thing is, right? Can I just go off pitch a minute, right? I would love to get a group of people together and just talk. Right, okay. In the long term, how can we keep records properly, right? How can we? Because what we do, we trust libraries with records and stuff, and now they're thinking, oh, well, we'll just scan all this in, and sorry, we lost it all, right? So the responsibility, my thing is that old archives need to be left as they are, right?
One of the problems with that, even if you think of the Great Library of Alexandria was all burnt down, you know, all those years ago, just because of the conflict. And even if you've got a library full of wonderful books, it can still be, you know, people bomb things these days, don't they?
Well, it could be, but there's more protection, remember, and
I mean, it's better than the plastic that's in a phone, but it's still even what paper isn't. I don't know what would be that wouldn't burn. That, you know, that they put on the stone tablets of the old times, but you can't really do those, store them, can you?
No. I think there's a thinking outside the box, and that's probably a discussion that needs to be had. However, let's crack on. Let's crack on with this all of this, and so Trajan, this emperor who established the Frumentari, which was basically this intelligence service that would just go out and wander about, and not these guys, but men on horses, you know, going out and about. And there must have been women involved in this. There must have been women, sort of intelligence, secret police people. So back to Septimus Severus, and we're thinking about Severus. Basically, in his reign, so you're talking about 205, that type of time, before he died in 211. Septimus Severus, augmented by similar officials who set up the sinister office of basically public affairs, right? There was a new office set up which was called Public Affairs. And this Office of Public Affairs dealt with everything, including tax collecting. You imagine you're a secret, Roger, you're a secret policeman, but you're also a tax collector, right? So it's a bit weird, really. It's a bit of a weird system. But in other words, everything's linked. You need money for a state, blah, blah, blah. So these special police, these secret police, were usually soldiers, indicating the militarization of society under Severan. So in other words, you know, you've got this is actually Roger, this is just so weird, right? You hear about so many ex-military in the police today.
Yes.
It's just really weird, that. So lots of these police people sort of trained in sort of espionage and police, you know, fighting. So they're in this sort of this special police force, and also this special. This is why they're talking about tax collecting, right? The special police force, they're also tax collectors because they're investigating who hasn't paid tax, right? So this would be a way of, they could keep law and order, but at the same time they collect taxes. It's a great whammy, right?
Yeah.
and this is another interesting thing. In the reign of Diocletian, right, when Diocletian is tiring Christians in the Colosseum around AD 300. So Diocletian's one of the great emperors, by the way. So Diocletian's um, bureaucratic reforms encouraged a huge growth in the number of these officials. So, in other words, there was a mass in Diocletian's reign in the 300s. There was a massive civil service of tax collectors, uh, police officers, secret police, all that type of stuff. Right? Again, there's familiarities in this where there's loads of government officials. Later in the 360s, another emperor, Julian, not the big emperor in the 540s, but this is an emperor, Julian, in the 360s, introduced measures to try to reduce their numbers. In other words, Julian had thought, oh my God, where am I getting the money from to pay all these officials? There's a massive tax burden. We're not only paying. So, in other words, they have these officials to collect taxes, which would pay themselves, instead of what Julian wanted, money to pay the army. So such agents were solely concerned with protecting the government and lining their pockets, not with dealing with normal crime or helping the people whose well-being and safety held no interest for them. Bribery was the normal means by which most subjects of the later empire dealt with such imperial officials. So in other words, you got somebody who's collecting tax, they're a policeman, you can bribe them. And you know what? I'm not saying modern day society is riddled with bribery, right? But there's a massive sense of irony there. Now, it's 9:13, right? And do you know what? What's that, Rog?
Back in now because I want to go soon. Yeah.
Yeah. I had two other things planned tonight, and I'm really, if I start something now, I'm not going to get it done. So, um, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint a picture for next week. So we're going to look at the Etruscans, and we're going
That'll
to
be
get an idea
interesting.
of their
Yeah.
writing for next week, a bit of their trade, yeah, sort of
Yeah.
an idea of how they lived. I just sort of bit of their gold, some of their artifacts, yeah. They were brilliant craftsmen, the Etruscans. And their sarcophagi was brilliant. Yeah, I've done the Etruscans before, but I just thought, well, even the Capitoline wolf is thought to be Etruscan, right?
Yeah.
And also next week, what I wanted to do, right? I wanted to look at this guy, right? This is Pliny the Elder. And I wanted to talk about Pliny the Elder, Naples, and I just wanted to bring this individual into play. He was a great writer, great historian. He was actually a great person. He was a good Roman. He offered his life to save people in the Bay of Naples from this volcanic eruption on the 24th of August in the fateful year AD 79. And his body was found on the beach asphyxiated by the fumes at Strabo, I think it was.
Oh,
So I think maybe what we'll do, we'll call that a night now and
yes.
see if
Cheers,
there's
Carl.
any questions. So let's see if there's any questions. And then I will go outside and I will run around the field naked, right? Being followed by my sheep.
Oh, be a change. Yeah.
It'll be a change. Yeah, be a change. You know,
No, okay. Nothing from me. No.
okay. But mind you, can I just say something, right? Um, um, our wool is so rich in lanolin. If anyone's got any skin problems, let me know, and you rub it onto your skin problems, and it aids recovery of cells. And if anyone wants that, then let me know because we've still got some lanolin rich wool. If anyone wants some.
Well, lanolin might be handy. I use stuff on my skin. You can see stuff recovering. Yeah.
So, honestly, if anyone seriously wants a bit of this lanolin ritual, then think about it and let me know, and I'll send you some in the post.
Okay, Carl. Cheers. I'll sign off now.
Oh, Roger, you're not listening to anybody else. Okay, Rog, I'll
Sorry.
see you next
Don't
week,
drink
Rog.
tonight. We're out and about tomorrow, late night.
All
Yeah.
right, Rog.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye.
See you all.
Good
Bye.
night.
Night,
Bye.
Rog. Okay,
Bye.
Anne. Night, Rog. Anything you want to say, Anne?
No,
Rogie, baby. Go on.
except even the second half followed the first with this amazing parallels drawn between then and now, and I don't know if we're going to do any better than them when it
No,
all
exactly.
but it's so amazing that it follows it so closely, really.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. There's just so many parallels. There really, really is.
Yes.
There really is. There really is. Drina.
No, nothing to say. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm not going to give any instructions to Judith to visit any places, but I will be. I am planning to come up to Yorkshire, and I'll meet up with my mate Sean, right? And we're gonna grab Judith. We're gonna kidnap her, and we're gonna go off to a Roman site and make a good video. Right,
Oh,
Judith.
there is something I've got to say, but it's only.
Hang on, I haven't finished.
On,
You've got to
sorry.
bring a bottle of Tizer with you.
All
Go on,
right.
Judith.
Forgotten now. Oh, I picked up a leaflet. You know what? My God, that Roman villa that you asked me to go to, and I got the footage, and I can't remember what it's called. The one that was right in the it's right in the centre in the blooming housing estate. Yes, in
Newport
Newport, you
Roman
have to
Villa,
drive
yeah.
round and round this housing estate and keeping seeing signs saying Roman villa this way. Like what? How? It's literally slap bang in the middle of a housing estate. It's amazing. Anyhow, that they gave us a little leaflet. Would you like me to
Oh,
post
yeah.
it to you?
Oh, I'd love it.
It's
I
only
love it because
only a little black and white one, but it's interesting.
I'd love it. Or you can scan it or something or whatever. You got
Oh,
my address anyway, yeah.
yeah. All right. And yes,
Okay.
please, could I have some lanolin, please?
Oh my God!
I
Oh
know.
my! Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. Let's just write this bloody down. Women, flipping heck. Right. So you want right? What I'm going to do, right? It's going to be a little bit of a package, and you'll. It's basically the yellow rich stuff, and and you just start rubbing it in your skin,
Lovely.
and just it's very very rich. Just rub it in, and usually when it gets to you, it's probably going to be a bit dry. So you just get a little bit of a water spray it on there, and then put it and then rub it in your skin. That'll
Oh,
last
lovely.
you a little while, and it'd be
All
good
right.
to see
Thank you.
what happens.
Okay.
So lanolin, Judith and Gina, if you ever want any lanolin, let me know, and
Thank you.
sorted. On that note, right? Do you know what? There's people talking online now. It's almost as if they've. I've just finished, guys. You know, if anyone wants to say anything online, they can. Don't forget to join and whatever. Right. So what I'm going to do, Judith, Anne, and Drina, is anything you want to say?
No.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
All right then. Well, I'm going to say good night. Thanks for joining us, and nice little group this week. And Anne, Drina, and Judith. Thanks for everything, Judith. I'll get you that in the post, and I will see you
Brilliant.
soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Night night,
Bye.
folks. Night
Bye.
night.
Bye.
Night night.
Night.
Night night. Anne, Drina, Judith. Night night.
Night.
Night night. Night. Drina. There's a song there. Drina, Las Vegas, do. There she is. She's still there. Right. Okay. So, guys. So we've got 7 of you online now, right? And if anyone wants me to talk about anything, my body, then I will. So, what I'm going to do, guys, is I would really, 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 guys, love you to watch. I'm gonna, guys, I would really love you, to watch a video I posted today. So I'm gonna get onto my little phone here, and I'm gonna get the link. And I've been talking about this throughout the conversation, and it's like I'm doing longer videos now, and they're not getting much in the way of traffic. And if guys, you can watch this video, then I would really appreciate that. I'm just gonna try and get on you. Well, come on, get on. Where's my video? Um, oh God, dystopian world. Hang on. Where is it, folks? Where is it? Um, God, I can't get a post for this a minute. Hang on a minute, guys. I'm just gonna get the video off here. And I'm using the one thing to communicate on here. I'm not actually using my other doodah. All right, yeah. So if we go to there, and I go to here, as I say, I'm trying to get you to watch this video. Hang on. I gotta get this here. And do video. It's this one. What one is it? Oh yeah, it's this one. I'm gonna share it to you guys. Watch this for me, please, and comment on it. And let me know what you think. And copy, please, guys. Watch this, and I will appreciate it. 1, 2, 3, go. Right, anyway, guys, I'm going to go now. Nos da, diolch yn fawr i chi, gwelwch chi eto, yma rwy hyd. Nos da, off, tatty, off ski, and I will be back on tomorrow night, Wednesday, 7:10. No, no, folks, no, no, I got to get with my sheep. I got to get with my sheep. Do. No, no, diolch yn fawr i chi, gwelwch chi. Nothing in chat 1, nothing in chat 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, nothing there. Back to meeting. Oh God, what have we just done? Oh my God. Oh my God, what have we just done? Press the button there. Nothing in the chat. 1. Nothing on that window. 7. Nothing there. Done. Nos da chi.